What's going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 134 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week we're talking about UFC Charlotte. Bit of a disappointment if you bought tickets to this event, I guess. Although, I don't know. I feel like there's some decent spots on paper. But before we hop into things, guys, as always, if you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Obviously, we do this for free. Don't mind doing it for free. We will continue to do it in perpetuity, but we would like better algorithm performance. So drop a like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Yeah. So let's discuss last week real quick. We'll just go over our results and then, just thoughts on the main event, I guess. I bet Phil Hawes for 2 units. Obviously, that fell on its face. I thought Phil looked fine until he got clipped, but who knows whether there was value there or not. I mean, he probably gets knocked out at a fairly healthy clip in that fight. Parker Porter was probably my best bet of the night. I had him at minus 145 for a unit. That hit. I bet Devin Clark for a unit. That was a disaster. Kennedy just too big, too athletic, clear side. I think there was probably betting value on Kennedy if I'm being completely honest. And then I had Aljamain Sterling big. I had 3 units on him. We'll talk about that main event in a second. Ended up a unit for the card. Lags, how'd you do?
Yeah, swept the card. It was great. And great seeing it in person as well, hanging out with you. So great night. So to start off, had the under 1.5 in the Porter-Smith fight. I kind of thought, I talked about it pretty much all week. That was my biggest spot of the card. Thought it was a great spot. Had Jailton plus 160. I know the fight ended a little early, but I think, again, talk about that money line-wise, clear side. And then, like you touched on with the main event, I had Aljo as well. To me, watching it live, obviously we were both live in the arena. I thought it was a close fight either way. 3-2 was fine. I know a lot of people around me, we were just talking about it before the pod started. A lot of people were screaming bad decision, shit decision, robbery, this and that. Yeah. I thought it was close live. I haven't rewatched it yet though.
Yeah, live. Live, I thought the clearest rounds were the same I felt when I did rewatch it, which were obviously 1 and 4 for Aljo, 5 for Cejudo. I leaned Cejudo live on both 2 and 3 pretty solidly though. I actually, we were in the same section, but you were a few rows back behind me. I actually ran down partially because I wanted to beat traffic, but also because I wanted to vomit because I thought Cejudo was going to get the decision. Was kind of surprised when he won. Then was even more surprised scrolling Twitter after the fight and seeing, all the chatter, all the media, he's basically scoring it for Aljo, loads of people on Twitter saying that, when to your point, everybody in our section was like, Cejudo's clearly winning this fight. So I decided to watch it back the next day. And I basically came away with, look, I'm not going to make a case Aljo should have won round 5. I think that was clearly Cejudo. But at the same time, people call that a robbery, but it's I think you have to take it in context. I thought Aljo won on rewatch. I thought he won. I thought round 3 was clearer than round 2. Cejudo had him both had a minute and a half of control, but he basically doubled him up on strikes. I feel like Cejudo got the round because of a late takedown and just discounted the rest of the round. And it was just kind of interesting because I feel like people are talking about it yes, that round 5 card cost Cejudo the title. But at the same time, I feel like if you throw that card in front of 100 different judges, that exact same fight, I feel like you're talking about sub 25% that Aljo only gets 1 round or 1 card with 1 round of 2 and 3. 2 was a 50-50 round. I thought 3 leaned Aljo on rewatch. So it's weird. Yes, in the context of this fight and that card, it cost Cejudo the fight and the title, and he should have won round 5. But I also feel like far more often than not, that exact fight gets scored for Aljo, But it was a close fight. It was kind of weird. It was fun, but also it was not exactly the most action-packed fight we've ever seen. So, yeah.
It was high. Cool. It was high level, I guess. Really,
Yeah. And it was fun attending. Kevin Holland, real man of the people, walked right by us while we were pre-gaming at the bar
Terrence
before
the
fight. Yeah, Terrence McKinney. No one was paying attention to Terrence McKinney though. Everybody was gathering around Kevin Holland. All right. And so before we get into this card, real quick, I would ask your thoughts about the card, but honestly, that's getting a little boring since we're going to talk about the entire card. Instead, we got an 11:30 a.m. start time here. And what that means is we got a brunch card here. So real quick, favorite breakfast cocktail and why?
Ooh, I guess it's got to be. I know I'm going to say mimosa, but that's for me. I'm not a Bloody Mary guy. I'm not a tomato juice. Nah. not me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I like mimosas. The problem is, like, I could for the taste drink mimosas all day long, but
Yep,
it's a little too acidic. And after about the second one, things
that's
start
true.
getting
Yeah,
weird. Bloody Marys, though, I'm with you. They're hit or miss. If they get a good mix of horseradish and Tabasco, they can really slap. But yeah, so we're both gonna go with mimosas. That's your cocktail of the week. Make sure to
yeah,
get after at 11:30 a.m. And with that, we'll jump right in here. Bit of a clusterfuck, but I think we got some fun fights. First fight of the
yeah.
night. Jessica Rose Clark, she's taking on debutante Tainara Lisboa. Um, I bet Jessica Clark here. I might even add a unit. I have a unit on it right now at minus 120, and as has been the trend thus far with this card, I am getting Bloody Maria. That's interesting. As has been the trend for this card, I'm getting reverse CLV'd up and down the entire card here. Not really used to that, but here we are. Yeah, it seems like everybody likes Tainara Lisboa. And, on the one hand, I sort of get it. Like, no one wants to trust Jessica Rose Clark. How could you want to trust her after her last two fights? Tainara Lisboa allegedly comes from I shouldn't say allegedly. She comes from a Thai background. I think she won, like, the Inca World Championship, like, 10 years ago or something. And obviously, she fought Valentina Shevchenko, lost a fairly one-sided fight, though. And since then, what the data we have on her for MMA, it's like, I don't know if there's anything to really write home about. She fought Norma Dumont in her first fight. She basically was able to keep the fight upright for about 2.5 minutes, eventually got dragged down and insta-subbed. And, you'd say you forgive that because it's Norma Dumont, except it was also Norma Dumont's first fight of her career. It's not like she fought like an 8-fight seasoned vet, Norma Dumont. Norma Dumont would also go to a split decision not too far after with Mariana Moraes. So very different fighter than the one we have today. Since then, she took a couple of years off. And since then, she's basically been fighting like bums. Her opponent's combined records at the time she fought them was 3-6. She lost to a 2-1 fighter 2 years ago, a unanimous decision. I can't find that fight, which is disappointing. But, that fighter, I've seen some people say, oh, she's 6-1 now, not that bad. Yeah, go look at what Lorani Santos's opposition has looked like, too. It's not exactly very good. And then the last two fights, she fought a woman who was 1-4 and a woman who was 1-2. Or 0-2. So she's fought nobody. She comes from a striking background, but it seems like in her MMA fight, she doesn't really want to strike. She just kind of wants to blitz forward into the clinch and try to drag these women down and out-grapple them. And I got to say, we haven't seen since the Dumont fight, which was her first fight, much info of her on her back. But I don't really like what I see from her on top. It makes me think she's fairly uneducated in grappling. She's just kind of bullying smaller, worse women. And now she's jumping in here. And yeah, Jessica Rose Clark's unreliable. I get it. Yada, yada, yada. Thing is, Tainara Lisboa is 5-2 in MMA. We don't really know. The only footage we have for on her back was her immediately giving up the back and getting subbed. And Jessica Rose Clark, she may be mid, but this is a woman who's a 500 fighter over multiple fights in the UFC. Like, she's got 20 career MMA fights. Yes, she's gotten armbarred a couple times, but I see nothing from Lisboa's game that makes me think she's going to hit an armbar here. I'd be very surprised at that. And we know Jess is going to wrestle. Like, yes, if they stand a distance, is it likely Lisboa has a striking advantage? I'd say yes, just because of the Thai background. But again, Muay Thai, if you watch it's a very sport than MMA and kickboxing in general. But like, I know that Jess is going to do what she has to do here, which is try to wrestle. Now, does Lisboa maybe show up and stonewall her and look, better than how I think she'll look? Very possible. But like, when thinking about, the range of possible outcomes here, I feel as if it's far more likely that in retrospect, we're like, holy shit, like, why the fuck was this an evens fight with a 5-2 Muay Thai specialist who's 32 years old, then we are, oh my God, Lisboa championship pedigree. Like, I see nothing in her game that makes me think she's headed to the top 10 or 15, Yeah. And then I'm just on the macro level. Look, someone that's got 4x the fights, that's 500 in the UFC, who's now an underdog to a debutante who's 32 years old. I'll pretty much play that blind most of the time just because from a market perspective, it's just people are fading Jess off 2 bad losses. So, yeah, I mean, I like the Rose Clark side. What do you think here, Legs?
So, to me, I kind of feel like even like, let's just say Lisboa just hangs around the UFC for a couple fights. I feel like her ceiling is probably like average to mediocre fighter at best. But to me, that's kind of where I think Clark is? Like, is she like average, mediocre? Maybe.
I agree.
I
agree.
don't think your striking's that great. Like, I think Lisboa has a big striking edge personally. Like, I know that's where we might disagree a little bit. I do think if Clark comes out here wrestles hard, she will look like value. But that's kind of where, where I
Yeah, I don't disagree. Like I said, I think it's a safe assumption to say. I shouldn't say safe, but I think it's a fair assumption to say Lisboa is the better striker here. But I mean, Clark's wrestled.
Go ahead.
I would say Clark's wrestled aggressively like 4 fights in a row now.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to add there was, I mean, I don't think Lisboa is out grappling her by any means. I just think that her striking is good. But I think I've seen a lot of takes like, oh, she's going to sub her, or she's going to process grapple her. That's not happening.
Yeah, she's going to sub her because Stephanie, like, I was having this conversation with a friend earlier this week who was like, well, Clark looked horrible against Edgar and Stoliarenko. And it's like, yeah, I mean, but I'd make Edgar and Stoliarenko like big minus numbers against Lisboa, So
yeah,
I don't know what that means.
The big thing for me, like on rewatch for the Stoliarenko fight, like I never thought she had good wrestling at all.
No,
and like Clark was just really aggressive in that fight, led to the takedown, and then
yeah, agreed. Moving on though, Gabe Green, Brian Battle, Lags. What are your thoughts here? Gabe Green currently is a minus 131 favorite, comeback plus 111 on Battle.
I think it's a banger of a fight, second fight of the night. Honestly, I mean, this would have been better as the first fight of the night, honestly. But I think the line's about right where it's at, really. I think Green, more reliable volume. I think more durable of the two. I don't think either is likely to have a ton of grappling success. Yeah, I mean, I just don't love, obviously, the way Green's taking damage. I mean, he's a punching bag on the feet, really. Yeah. But Battle, again, he's not a guy that defensive savant either, so.
Yeah, I think the line could be wider, but
okay.
I'm also not really, like, itching to play Green unless he gets back near evens, I had wanted to play him early on, but before I had access to it, it got blown up. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Neither guy has, the best defense in the world. And obviously, the one thing that kind of scares me away from Brian Battle or from fading Brian Battle is he does throw a crazy amount of volume. And, if you watch the show every week, you know what I think about that. Volume wins fights. That's the truth. But with that said, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for leg kicks here from Green. I think he's going to have an easier time lining up his power shots against Battle than vice versa. Battle doesn't really sit down on his shots in the same manner Green does. And beyond that, I mean, let's be honest, Green, he's more experienced and he's just fought better competition. He lost to Daniel Rodriguez and Ian Gary, but like, it's not like he was uncompetitive with either of them. He had competitive moments throughout both of those fights. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Green's the side, but again, the Battle volume edge scares me, and to your point, the amount of damage Green has taken scares me. So if it gets back near evens, I'll take a splash, but otherwise,
Just real quick to add in there, it looks like on Bet Online, Battle's taking some money, so you got Green at like minus 129 now, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if he keeps coming, I'll bet him, but I mean, it's not my most passionate take. On a card without many passionate takes, this is certainly not one of them. Moving on.
Speaking of passionate takes now for you, right?
Oh, yeah. We got Ji Young Kim taking on Mandy Bohm. I actually bet Kim right before we came on the podcast. I laid minus 190. It's like an uncomfortable bet to make, laying minus 190 in a female fight. But I really think Mandy Bohm is like one of the worst to ever do it. She might legitimately be the worst fighter to ever come.
Right, because I mean, we thought Victoria Leonardo was one of the worst, and then you watch that fight, and then it's like, well.
Yeah. Like, she's low output. She's a bad grappler. She seems chinny for women's MMA.
Gassy.
Yeah, she's gassy. And like, even prior to the UFC where she got her wins was like this bizarro German regional scene. Like, I was looking at a record the other day and she had like 4 or 5 fights against women who never fought again. They debuted against her, took an L, never fought again. Like, this is just a woman who is not fit to be here. And like, on the other side, yeah, you always have your concerns with Kim because she's been in a bunch of close fights, but it's like, was reasonably competitive with Alexa Grasso. Very close fight with Molly McCann. She probably won. Very close fight with Priscilla Cachoeira. She definitely won. Didn't get the nod for. And then a close fight with Jocelyn Edwards. Like, all of these women would be heavy, heavy favorites against Bohm. Like, the thing for me is, if Bohm was a volume striker, it would be enough that I'm like, I could never lay this juice on Kim. But she's not. She's low volume. She's very easy to hit. I think Kim is a better, I don't want to say better, more well-rounded striker than Lipsky, but I think she's a much better boxer, and I think she's as hard a hitter. And Lipsky almost got her out of there twice. I feel like the best case for Bohm here is Kim gives her a staring contest, and it ends up being close. But like, I think Kim has every tool to like honestly finish her here. I think she's going to win this pretty easily. I think Kim minus 300, like winning this 3 out of 4 is a lot more fair. Weird thing for me is like Kim was like minus 275, minus 280 last time this was booked when it closed. I don't really understand the sentiment coming in. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kim should be fine here, really. I mean, I think people take a lot of like these women's fights and it's like, oh, big favorite. Oh, she had close fights. Oh, this and that, you know, the worry. But like, look who she's having close fights with. Like, if Mandy Bohm has a close fight with Ji Kim probably should hang it up. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, again, I agree with you. It should be Kim all day. And I think, like you had mentioned there, I think people might get cute with the Kim decision angle here. But like, Bohm doesn't have good defense. Not great cardio wise. Yeah, I think Kim should roll.
Yeah, and I mean, Kim hurt Cachoeira, who's durable as hell, multiple times. Like Mandy Bohm, I think is going to get hurt a couple times in this fight. We'll see. But like, if the Kim KO number was a bit better, I'd splash it. But it's pretty shit. Moving on, I'll throw it to you, Lags. We got a absolute dog shit fight here, but one that could potentially be entertaining. We got Natan Levy taking on Pete Rodriguez. Natan Levy's a huge favorite here. Not something you hear often. Well, not huge. He's down to minus 230. Comeback on Rodriguez plus 195. What are your thoughts here?
So I understand like why people are coming in on the Pete Rodriguez side. Just because, I mean, Levy is a big favorite. Just his game in general is not great. But like, there's enough red flags on the Rodriguez game to where it's like I don't want any interest. Like, for starters, there's no grappling footage of him pretty much at all. 2, the guy hasn't been past 3 minutes ever. He's never won a fight past 2.5 minutes. And 3, the dude's making his first ever cut down to 155 pounds. This was 155 pounds before, and he was having issues making the weight. That's why the fight was pulled.
Yeah.
So, I get the dog shots, but it's definitely a pass for me with all those red flags.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to preface everything I'm about to say by saying I'm not betting Pete Rodriguez for all of the points that you just brought up. On the other side, I do feel like on paper, Levy should have the tools to handle him. Like, I think he's better at everything. But like, just like there's all those red flags about Pete Rodriguez, like I think Natan Levy's pretty bad at MMA. And like, for whatever reason, the UFC keeps trying to make the Natan Levy experiment a thing. I'm not sure why. The guy's got no defense. If you blitz him, if you let him sit on the outside and kick, you know, he's fine. But if you get in the pocket with this guy, he's got no defense. He's got a terrible gas tank. You know, he gets treated as a grappling specialist. And like the Natan Levy by sub is going to turn into really quick the Curtis Blades by sub thing, you know, with how often people bet it and how he never really gets close. He doesn't put hooks in when he gets guys down, so it's like pretty easy to explode up against him. Yeah, I mean, I think Levy's bad. I think there's like a reasonable chance Rodriguez blitzes him early and knocks him out, if we're being honest. I guess for me, it's just like if Rodriguez doesn't do that, I don't really see a lot of outs for him winning this fight. You know, and even his round 1, it's like, well, his money line's plus 200. His round 1's plus 450. Like, that's not really moving the needle for me, you know?
So I think, I will, sorry, to cut you off real quick. I think somebody did say, and I see it right now, the KO one is 550. I think before it was 7-1. I think it got hit a bit, but yeah.
I mean, that's what I would bet. Yeah. If you're going to take a shot at it. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, dude, Rodriguez is a bomb. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, and not even like to just like pigeonhole it. It's like always round 1 or bust. But like, I mean, you're pretty much going off of narrative or assumptions. Any other way you're playing this fight, really, you know.
The optimal outcome for us here would be Levy like kind of resetting his fade value, like landing like one of those spinning wheel kicks early and just looking like $1 million for 3 minutes. Because I'm very confident Natan Levy is not it and will never be it. But
real quick, we want to talk about the props. So that you were just mentioning, Levy's sub is plus 215.
That's insane.
Yeah, and then
the guy's never gotten close in the UFC.
And then they have Pete KO is 325, Levy KO is 365.
I actually don't hate that. I feel like he's way more likely to KO than sub, honestly. So, But I mean, fuck that. I mean, we're not donating here, Lags. Like you
Yep.
said last week, there's fights every week. We don't need to get involved with the Tom Levy and Daniel Pete Rodriguez.
Exactly.
Moving on, I'll leave it with you here, though. I know you have a bet. We got Cody Stamann. He's taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade. Stamann is small favorite. It's minus 140. Comeback on Andrade plus 120. What are your thoughts here?
Not strong thoughts really, but I mean, I think Stamann's really a decisionator. I know it's a bit of it's not really a hot take by any means, but like, I mean, he's a good striker, but lately he hasn't been dominating the wrestling. He hasn't been going to it a ton. And like, D Silva's a tough guy to hold down, keep down, tough guy to finish, which obviously I don't think Stamann has any finishing upside in the fight. But yeah, I mean, I think on the feet, D Silva's going to land the bigger shots. Obviously, I think technically wise, Cody's probably the better striker, but I think optically, I think D Silva can make it a dogfight, and I just don't think he's going to be held down that long. So small play for me, D Silva plus 130.
Yeah, fair enough. And like I had mentioned, I lean the other side, and like I had mentioned to you, I thought about betting it, but I actually think, and the more I think about it, I'd rather. So I'll get my breakdown, but like basically, I don't disagree with like much of what you said, and like I do think there's a decent amount of equity here for De Silva or Silva de Andrade KOing him and or winning the fight off of power shots. I do think there is an element of this fight and where the line is though of just like how dog shit Cody looked in his last fight against Luan Lacerda, and he did look like dog shit. But he's not an old guy. He's 33. I did hear from someone reliable that he had apparently had a horrible weight cut before that fight, which isn't to say he won't have one here, But I do think that fight is more of an aberration than really indicative of, what Cody is as a fighter, this is a guy, he was ranked in the top 10 for a time, he had for a bit competitive grappling exchanges with Aljamain Sterling. He's got some good wins. But with that said, I really feel like I think he's probably the more skilled fighter at this juncture in their careers and obviously younger. But there's enough concerns regarding how he looked last fight. De Silva de Andrade coming out like a tank early here and putting it on him, that I think I'd almost rather play it live. Like I lean the Cody side, but like I feel like he's going to struggle to hold Andrade down early in this fight, and like striking, output will probably be competitive, but Andrade certainly hits harder. So it's like I'd rather see if it's at a pace where Andrade is likely to slow and get in there live than, get in pre and then see Cody take 3 wobbles in the first round and look scared like he did in the last round of the Lacerda fight.
So I guess my question to you then would be, you think it's super live that Cody can hold him down then?
Not early. I think as the fight, I think if he stays on him and like attempts like 6 to 10 takedowns across the fight, I think eventually, like, maybe 7-8 minutes in, he'll start getting some top time and holding him down. But I do think Douglas is explosive enough early that him holding him there is going to be a tough task. So we'll see. Moving on, Carl Williams, Chase Sherman. Oddly enough, similar to the Kim fight, this one is also currently lined like lower than where it was the last time they fought. The irony being Carl Williams was on very short notice and had no camp the last time, and this time is actually a time to plan for the fight. I look, honestly, people made a case for Chase Sherman the last time. I couldn't do it. The bottom line is I'll try to make an experience-based case for anybody, but like we've seen Chase Sherman wilt every time. Has he won a fight where he's been taken down? I'm actually going to look this up right now. I feel like the answer is no, right?
Yeah, I would say no. Like,
he hasn't won many fights in general. So,
right. The rebooking nobody asked for.
Right. Yeah. No, he has not won a fight where he's been taken down. And he's been subbed and finished on the mat a number of times. And so, like, I'm looking at it. I'm honestly, like, really kind of tempted to bet Williams inside the distance or Williams by submission, like plus 400, plus 550 actually on FanDuel. Like, he doesn't sub. Like, Williams doesn't sub people, but like, look how easy Chase gave up his back to like Jay Collier. Like, I feel like Williams could hit a sub with no hooks in here. Like, am I crazy, Lags? What do you think on the fight?
No, I think Carl dumpsters him. I think it's just, kind of like what you're talking about. It's just whether or not you're playing the inside the distance or the goes the distance. From a guy who's bet on Carl Williams before, and like, again, the round 3 decision over Bresky, and I think Bresky's kind of like a cardio nothing, doesn't have much on the ground. I mean, I think Sherman's probably a little bit more wiltier. And Carl, this is, again, like you touched on, the much longer camp. It's not short notice. I don't know. I don't have a ton of thoughts, honestly, on the inside the distance or decision. I mean, it's probably just more based off of Sherman quitting.
Yeah, fair enough. Moving on. We have a fight of senior citizens here. It's the for the geriatric title. We've got Court McGee taking on Matt Brown. Lags, what are your thoughts here?
Winner gets a hip, right? I think was that Martian who said it last time? I couldn't remember who mentioned it last time. Somebody must have mentioned. One of our guests said that one time. Might have been Sean. Shout out to both of you guys, though. Either way. But yeah, I'll bring this up every time like these kind of fights get made together. Great matchmaking. Like these are the kind of fights that we need. Like we don't need like the the Shogun Ihor Poteria as he's retiring type of thing. But no, I mean, I think Court should be fine here personally. I think he has the cardio edge, striking edge, grappling edge. Really, I don't expect Matt to hit takedowns on Court. Could Matt catch Court? I guess, but doesn't have great cardio. I mean, I think it's drawing dead to kind of an early-ish knockout. So I think Court's fine down the stretch here. Can probably finish late.
Yeah, I think I more or less agree with how the fight plays out if it runs 15. I just like the things that Court brings to the table generally more at this juncture of their careers. Court's still has great cardio, pushes a pace, high volume, both with takedowns and strikes, as opposed to Matt, who has bad cardio, doesn't really throw a high volume. Yeah, so I'm fine with the line. What I do think is interesting, I haven't deployed any money on it yet, but I think I'm probably going to. The under 2.5 is like plus 140 in spots. And I guess my thinking is we've seen Court's durability is deteriorating. We have seen that in recent fights. So is Matt Brown's for that matter. And if Matt, I feel if Matt has a competitive fight here, he's probably going to hurt Court a couple times, But number two, even if he doesn't, and it's one-way Court, Matt, he's gotten better at his grappling over the years, but this guy has been subbed a bunch. He's got a bad gas tank. He's fragile himself. And it's we know Court's going to push a heavy pace on him. I feel even if it's one-way traffic, there's probably a high chance Court finishes. So I think both guys can finish. Even if Matt kept it upright, Court's not traditionally a hitter, but Matt Brown's durability is falling off a cliff here. Both of theirs is. So I kind of feel in a fight where one guy has Matt has real one hitter quitter power. And then you've got Court who has sub upside and just general gas pedal upside. That's exactly what you're looking for a dog under. Any thoughts there?
Yeah. I mean, not bad, honestly. I mean, for me, and I guess maybe I'm a lot of result based with these unders. I mean, we both did. I know Luke did as well when he was on the pod. We all played Court over Ramiz Brahimaj, and it's that dude has no cardio. Kind of, I wouldn't say a quitter, but how does Court not get him out of there? Right, and I would think Court would have gas pedaled him out of there, and yeah, obviously
that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
But you're getting a great number as well. So,
moving on though, we got Tim Means taking on Alex Morono. I have a small bet on Means at plus 200, just a unit. I think this. It's not I'm not going to come out here and say huge value on Tim Means. It is, I think, an interesting fight in that I think the best version of Means, I'd probably flip the lines, honestly, and make Means around minus 200. But obviously, the best version of Tim Means has left the building a long time ago. And, I can't even sit here and say and make a case for him like I made for Rob Font, maybe, him getting hurt a bunch is an aberration. No, it's pretty clear that his durability is declining at this point in his career. But with that said, I do think something that is being overlooked is, yes, I was a little surprised by the line because, yeah, I mean, Means' durability is declining, but his striking is still there. I mean, he's a bit slower. But Morono on the other side, this is not a guy who is historically been a very durable fighter. This guy gets hurt all the time. He got finished and he's coming off a brutal KO. And on top of that, Alex Morono historically is a very poor defensive wrestler. And Tim Means throughout the last couple fights has been attempting takedowns, much more often. And I do think takedowns are going to be available here. On minutes, I'd expect the striking stats to be pretty close, and so if that's the case, and I think there's grappling upside, well, it's how likely is Morono to KO Means? And it's a reasonably likely outcome, but I also sort of feel like maybe Morono is getting too much credit for power for knocking out an ancient Donald Cerrone and hurting Mickey Gall and an aged Ponzinibbio. Now, obviously, he's fighting an aged fighter here, so him hurting or finishing Means won't be shocking. But what I'm saying is it's not like Means is taking on like one of these young kids who's like, it's not like he's fighting a Chaos Williams where it's like, fuck it, he's going to touch that chin at some point. And Means, like I said, I think Means can hurt him as well. So, yeah, I favor Morono here. I think you have to, based on the age and the durability concerns. He's just been in generally better form. But, Means, he is an experienced guy. He's fought a lot of high-level competition throughout his career. He's got similar striking stats. He's probably a better technical striker, and I think he's got a wrestling edge. So, plus 200, it's a one-unit poke for me. What do you think?
I think it's a weird fight, for sure. I think that for me to add on top of like your part of the Morono breakdown, I think he's much quicker than Tim too. I mean, obviously you
at this point, yeah.
Tim being slim. Yeah, I mean, I think on the feet, I think Morono's much quicker. Probably hits reasonably harder. I wouldn't say like crazy harder. And I don't know. For me, I just don't see a ton of wrestling success for Tim. So
fair enough.
Where the rubber meets the road. Yeah.
Moving on. You have a strong take here. We got minus 440. Carlos Olberg taking on plus 310 Ihor Poteria.
No strong takes. I think Carlos handles Ihor pretty comfortably. It's just, again, you're kind of handling it from a prop perspective. So no, it's a pass for me. I think Carlos smokes him.
And the props are juiced out the yin yang,
right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna do it. There's a part of me that like wants to just take the throw the dart at Poteria here. It's just like I feel as if the market's pricing in Poteria being bad and Olberg winning by KO in his last couple. But it's not pricing in enough of, are we sure Olberg's actually good at MMA or did he just get 2 quick KOs? This is a guy in his first fight. Obviously, Ihor is not Kennedy, but it's a guy in his first fight who showed virtually no standing defense. His next fight, Fabio Charant, didn't even really make an attempt to hit him, but did crack him twice. In his third fight, he knocked out Tafon a minute into the fight. And then in his last fight against Negi Mariano, he also knocked him out in about a minute and a half. And so I'm not really ready to say Carlos Olberg has cleaned up his defense. And so I think there is a case you could make for, yes, Olberg's way better, but if these guys swing and if Ihor comes out as aggressive as he normally does, he's probably got a plausible path to knocking Olberg out here. But with that said, I said no more dog shelters in 2023. And the truth is, it wouldn't take a lot for Olberg to fight smart, look his price, and get, either get Ihor out of there or win a fairly one-sided decision. I actually think the smartest fight for Olberg might even just be to like lock him up in the body lock and take him down. Like, I'm pretty sure he can get on top of Ihor and hold him down here. So yeah, I mean, I do think that the market is probably overly high on Olberg right now, but it's like, do I want to fade him with the worst fighter at 205? Yeah, like not really.
Or does John want to bet the over?
I don't want to bet the over. What is the over?
It's 1.5. I think it's like plus 105, plus 110.
No. I don't want any part of that.
I expect it to go under, honestly.
It's a pass. And again, it's like a similar fight where it's like, I think Olberg's got some reasonable tools, but it would be cool if he picked up another KO1 and we had a chance to get somebody with real durability and defense, or like a Kennedy. Oh no, he fought Kennedy already. Right. If we had a chance to get someone with real durability against him at like a big plus, like that would be cool. But yeah, I mean, no play. Moving on. I'll throw it to you again here. I know we both have plays here. We got Daniel Rodriguez. He's taking on Ian Machado, Gary. What are your thoughts?
And it's not really a passionate one for me, but like, how wrong can you be with D-Rod at plus 245? And that's where I played him at for a unit. It's like, I think he's got a ton of volume, got good power on the feet. Obviously, he's a bit slower. The age is there. It's a concern, but like, Gary's got his defensive issues. For me, it's like, unless he goes out here and grapples D-Rod hard or can easily find a knockout, how are we getting like minus 300 on Gary? So yeah, small D-Rod for me.
Yeah, I mean, I bet it's funny because, like I said earlier, I'm used to getting the right side of lines, and instead I bet 2 units on D-Rod at plus 200, and literally, like, within a day, it was plus 250, which made me feel like a fucking schmuck. Yeah, sometimes. I'm not, but the thing is, like, I'm not trying to act, like, I'm a little spooked by it. I'm not trying to act, like, honestly, I'm a little spooked by the line movement because I think Gary's better than I thought he was entering the UFC, but I really struggled to see how he's minus 200 here. And people are obviously moving this line out to past minus 300. Like, there's obviously some sharp money on it. I know some people that think minus 300 was right. But with that said, yeah, you touched on a lot of it. I guess the crux for me, look, Gary's got a big speed edge. I think we both agree with that, and he throws in combination. So he can do some damage to Rodriguez there from that perspective. I think his style could be inherently difficult in some respects for Rodriguez. But at the same time, I look at a couple things here. First of all, Gary relies on that leg kick a lot, that low calf kick, and fighting a southpaw like Rodriguez, it kind of dramatically limits the efficacy of it in this fight. On top of which, it's like Gary's last fight, or 2 fights ago, Gabriel Green, he won the fight 30-27, but like Green had competitive moments throughout those rounds. And like Rodriguez fought Green too, and it massively outperformed what he did against Green. And I feel as if you have to operate under the assumption that Daniel Rodriguez is going to outperform Gabriel Green statistically in this fight, right? Is that a crazy take? Like, I feel like you have to make that assumption.
No, he's the better striker of the two. More
By
volume.
a lot. Yeah. And so if you make that assumption, it's like he can't be minus 200 because Gary only outlanded Green by 26 strikes over 15 minutes. On top of which, the counters worry me a bit with the speed, like I touched on, but I actually was kind of impressed with how Rod handled the Leach fight. He did a pretty good job staying at the edge of Leach's range, so he couldn't really get home with most of his head strikes and had to kick. And I expect to see something similar here. Ultimately, I just look at it and, like, I think Gary's a very good prospect. He's a lot better than I gave him credit for. But at the same time, the guy was basically 1 second from losing round 1 to Jordan Williams. Had a moderately competitive fight with Darian Weeks. Same thing with Gabe Green. It's such a huge step up in competition. And you look at the stats, Rod's stats are a tiny bit better than Gary's are, and he's fought much better competition. So, like, I just feel like, yeah, the age thing's going against us, and so is the athleticism and the speed. But I feel like there's certain projections you have to make in a fight like this based off of the available data. And those projections to me mean this is likely a competitive fight. Look, Rod's 35. If he falls off a cliff and Gary gets even better and he should improve, he could get dumpstered here. But I think it's worth the flyer,
Yeah, I mean, even talking about the last fight with Song Kanon, it's like, I mean, we were talking about that week. It's like, oh, it's a layup. Easy spot for Gary. People were even playing the under 1.5. Oh, he's going to knock him out. This should be an easy. And it's like, had a Terry moment in there, And like, D-Rod's a way, way better striker than that. So
he is. And I feel like the market might be getting a bit colored by the loss to Magny, but it's like Magny's just such a different fighter than Gary is. There's not even comparable. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Gary looked way better here. It wouldn't blow me away. I think he's pretty good, but I feel like just going off what we do have, you have to throw some money on Rodriguez here. And I make Gary a favorite, to be clear. I just think it should be a small favorite, not a huge favorite.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking minus 300 Gary, you'd have to say D-Rod has some durability issues.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Anyway, moving on. Anthony Smith, Johnny Walker, bit of a banger here. Line has moved around a bit. Currently Walker minus 113. Comeback on Smith minus 107. Smith's my biggest bet of the night. I have 3 units on him at about plus 104. I think the line right now is perfectly fine to hit him again here. Not financial advice, but I think there's a good amount of value on Anthony Smith. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the most important factor in this fight or variable is durability. And, I saw someone tweet this week, what if I told you Smith's been knocked out more than Walker? And it's like, that's true, but not at light heavyweight. He got knocked out a bunch early in his career at middleweight, but he's actually shown off quite good durability at light heavyweight, whereas Walker has just shown no durability. He's fought better guys. I think this would be Smith's worst loss at light heavyweight, probably. He's beaten better guys. His losses at light heavyweight have all been to the elites. I feel like he's the much better boxer here. Both guys could have leg kick success, but Walker is a man on the feet, like where his efficacy comes from is like big, high volatility, singular shots. Whereas if they're in the pocket, Smith's got a real jab. He can throw in combination in a way Walker's just not skilled enough to. I guess there is this idea out there that Walker, who's landed one takedown in his UFC career, could grapple fuck Anthony Smith. And don't get me wrong, I think Johnny Walker can take him down. Anthony Smith's takedown defense is null and void. But a couple things. One, like I said, he has one takedown in his UFC career. This is not a guy who, he wasn't taking down Cutelaba. He was just grappling with him when Cutelaba kept taking him down. Two, I really don't think Johnny Walker wants to be fucking around on the ground with Anthony Smith. I know I'm not saying Anthony Smith's the Maya. He's obviously not. But, Johnny Walker is okay jiu-jitsu. Ion Cutelaba is just a quitter who has no jiu-jitsu. If he messes around on the ground with Smith, there's a decent chance he gets swept and or sub there. And number three, you're telling me Johnny Walker is going to come out and shoot 6 to 10 takedowns? Dude, this guy's going to be sucking wind 7.5 minutes in if that happens. So, yeah, I think Smith is the better striker. I think he's the better submission grappler, and I think he's way more durable. To me, all of those things line up that Smith should be minus 185 range here. So, yeah, big bet on Smith for me. What do you think, Lags?
Yeah, I bet Smith as well for a unit minus 110. I mean, for me, it's Walker's just a big, massive athlete, hits hard. That's what he is. There's not a ton of other advantages to his game. Like you touched on the boxing. Smith has the better boxer. Smith is the better boxer of the two. I think extended grappling success. I mean, you touched on again, Walker could land a takedown or two. I think Smith, if anybody's going to dumpster in the grappling, I think it's Smith. And in terms of the cardio, in terms of the durability, both edge Smith. Yeah, I mean, again, he could get caught. It's MMA, but
Walker hits hard. He could knock him out.
Right,
sure.
He hits hard, but I'm not saying this is a 50% outcome, right? I don't think a sub or decision are any at all likely. So,
no, I mean, and the last guy who went to try to go to the last two, we saw Devin Clark try to fuck around on the ground with Smith, and he's definitely a better positional wrestler than Walker is, and he got subbed pretty much right away doing that. I just don't see it. I mean, like you said, I can see the Walker path. Yeah. I can certainly see him KOing him. That wouldn't be a surprise. It's Johnny Walker. But
right.
Yeah.
But the thing is too, people will probably be oh man, Walker's the higher finishing upside of the two. But is he though?
I really don't
think so.
Smith
is a finisher, man. Almost all of his wins are finish, man. So.
He is, and Smith starts well. People did the one glaring thing in their heads from the Glover Teixeira fight is, or actually, he doesn't always start well, but the one glaring thing people have in their heads from the Glover fight is Smith picking his teeth up off the mat. What they forget is the 8.5 minutes he played pinball with Glover's head, to start that fight. Smith's hung in there with some good fighters, man. His last three wins, Clark, Ryan Spann.
And I think from the Crute fight, the big lasting thing is that, he got taken down by a one-legged Crute, but it's also he was also piecing up Crute on the feet standing. So
very easily.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I don't think it's funny because I feel there are people who think, and myself included, actually, I was kind of impressed that Walker fought competitively on minutes with Thiago Santos for 5 rounds, even though it was very, very low volume. That's the other thing. He has no volume.
Right.
But that's aged horribly. Thiago Santos has looked like a corpse in his last 4 MMA fights. And he just popped for steroids on top of it. So it's I don't take a lot out of that fight, No,
I don't. It's hard to honestly take anything out of that fight.
Right. I completely agree. And in terms of his other, the Ryan Spann fight with Johnny Walker, if you guys haven't watched it, go check it out. One of the best ever.
Listen, Johnny Walker's an under 1.5 machine for me. It's been great, but as an MMA fighter, he's bad.
Yeah, I completely agree. Moving on, though, I'll throw it to you, Lags. The main event. It is a main event that nobody really wanted, I don't think. And you mentioned, actually, I'll let you mention it. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida is a gigantic favorite here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we were talking about it right before we started the pod. It's it's the main event, but it's the least talked about probably fight on the card. Just because everybody kind of expects Jailton to smoke Jairzinho, and I don't really disagree because it's one takedown is probably just him absolutely just hammering him on top or fishing for a sub. So the under 1.5 minus 205, I get the sentiments there. I have no action on this fight, but I think Jailton smokes him in the first round likely. He is predictable with his entries, though. I know, you'll talk about that a little bit. It's just a front kick up the middle and shooting the takedown, but he'll definitely hit a wall. But this is not that fight.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to bet Rozenstruik. You and I were talking about it, and I have some temptation because FanDuel has plus 1,000 for round 1 for Rozenstruik, which is kind of tempting. I do think Jailton's game. I mean, look, he's obviously got very good jiu-jitsu, and his double leg is obviously quite nice. He hasn't really fought anybody that can do anything about that. And like you just mentioned, yeah, I mean, his entire game is front kick into takedown. And from what I've seen of extended striking sequences for Jailton, they've been pretty fucking ugly, to be honest. And so I don't really. At some point, he's going to fight somebody who's like, yeah, I'm not getting taken down inside 30 seconds. He's just going to sprawl and probably beat him up. I actually thought his gas in the Shamil fight looked pretty suspect. Like, even though that was a dominant fight, he looked visibly tired in round 2 of that fight. But yeah, like you said, it's like, yes, I think Rozenstruik is probably harder to take down than he gets credit for. But at the same time, I would rate Jailton's double leg a lot better than like Cyril Gane's, for instance. So yeah, you mentioned it. It's like one takedown and the fight's over. With that said, if he doesn't get an instant takedown here and he's trying to swing at range at all with Jairzinho, he's a very dangerous counter striker, man, and he hits like an absolute truck. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him put Jailton out unconscious here. I really wouldn't. Actually, no, I would, but I think it's a lot. I think it's a live outcome. It's a live-er outcome than any of the guys Jailton's faced in the past. Like, none of the guys he's fought really have the timing of a Jairzinho or the power that Jairzinho possesses. So yeah, I can see the angle for Jairzinho. I'm not really that interested in it. Maybe round 1, take a little small poke, but yeah. So I mean that'll do it for this card.
Yeah, they have. I would say real quick, just talking about the props on the main event a little bit. Just try to kill some time. They've all made a sub at evens, or pick 'em, I should say, not even. Sorry, can't offend Martian there.
What's his KO?
KO is plus 220.
I'd rather. I don't really like either of those for where he is.
No.
Next week's a bit better. Man, not really. Next week kind of sucks too. 3 weeks from now is a fun card, a very fun fight night card. But yeah, so I mean that'll do it for the show. Real quick, we talked about brunch drinks to open it up. Favorite brunch breakfast food?
Favorite brunch. So we're just talking like we're just gonna go breakfast here, right?
Like you're going with the boys out for brunch. You're gonna get something egg related in all likelihood. What do you get?
Something egg related. Yeah, I'd probably do an omelet. Probably get some hash browns in there, some bacon. I'm now. How about this? Now while we're talking about that, are you more? We'll talk about the different the breakfast, the waffles, the pancakes, your French toast.
I fuck with them.
Which one of the three? No, one of the three. Which one are you picking out of those three? Because I know everybody's
depends.
like,
if the French toast is made well, I go with the French toast. But it's very rare to get good French toast.
That's true.
That's
true.
For me personally, I like the eggs Benny. That's my favorite breakfast food. Especially there's a place right around the corner from our house. They make their own homemade English muffins on it too.
Oh, there you go.
That shit is great. Yeah.
You can't go wrong with a New York bagel sandwich, like in
that
breakfast sandwich, dude.
Yeah, but I eat bagels way too often anyway, which is why I have to lose about 30 pounds. But yeah, guys, have some brunch this weekend. Have a few drinks. Like, honestly, this card is the kind of card where it's like, if your brain's a little sloshing around a bit at the end of it, I don't think you're going to miss much. Yeah, so let's have some fun. Hopefully you make some money this weekend. I hope if you guys follow or fade us, we hope you make money. Drop a like, subscribe. We will be back next week to break down arguably a just as bad card, which is Mackenzie Dern and Angela Hill. 7 p.m. Eastern. Good luck. God bless. Aljamain Sterling out.